You're listening to The Plumbing Sales Coach, where we give companies the strategies and skills to create a massive customer following.
Fresh.
Thank you for making us part of Spotify's top 10% most shared and followed podcast. And now, your host, Chris.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Fresh Approach. I'm your host, CF, the Plumbing Sales Coach, and today we're going to deal with objections. Objections happen all the time. They're something that people typically will give you when they're not excited about what they're being offered, or when they're not interested in what they're being offered, or quite frankly, when they don't trust what they're being offered. And so we're going to deal with that today. One thing I will tell you before we go too far into this episode is I'm a big fan of removing objections before they ever come up. Today we're going to talk about how to overcome them, but I want to be very clear. There are several things that I teach through the sales process that will eliminate these objections before they ever come up. I don't often hear price objections because I've gotten them so many times and I figured out where they're coming from, and I found ways to alleviate that by providing a better process and a better experience, by doing a better job at making sure that I understand what the customer wants. And I do that through the art of asking questions. But today we're going to talk about overcoming objections. Questions will be a piece of this, but at the end of the day, it's the style of questions and where those questions are going. They're going to separate this from the questions that we ask typically when we're walking through building relationship and diagnosing. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've been following our episodes for a while, you understand that in our podcast, we try to give you real information that will solve problems. This is not fluff to sell you a product. This is not fluff to sell you a program. We want to make an impact. Now, we do offer a program. We do have tons of companies in our tech trainings and in our owner coaching sessions. We have over 60 companies a part of our program, and there's close to 1,000 technicians in the program. I don't know exactly how many, but there are so many that we see success all the time. We see so many results that we want them for you and for your team and for the rest of the people in the industry. Mostly what we want to do is impact the experience the customer is having. We do that by providing this training, by providing your team with a better way of going about it. We see numbers rise, but we also see customer satisfaction rise. And at the end of the day, we're building consumer confidence. Consumer confidence is key. So when you think about an objection, it comes up because consumer confidence wasn't built. And if you want to deal with or remove an objection, you have to build consumer confidence. So that's what it's all going to come down to, and that's what we're going to focus on today. And as always, you know where you're at. This is the Fresh Force. We're always going to be focused on serving. Always be serving is our message, is our motto. Service over sales is how we approach the game. And we are constantly focused on how we can get better as an industry, how we can get better so that our customer has a better experience. And a lot of you know that I travel down to Disney World and I go to different places. And here recently, I was just at Disney World. And then actually just a couple of days ago, I was at Cedar Fair's park, Kings Island. Kings Island is an amusement park in Mason, Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati, and it's owned by Cedar Fair. Cedar Fair owns Cedar Point, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, and so many other, Knott's Berry Farm out west, and so many others. And they actually just merged with Six Flags. Six Flags is pretty famous as well. And these are top thrill amusement parks. They are the kind of the adrenaline junkies. This is where they go. They go to these parks, Cedar Point being one of the most famous ones with the most roller coasters and thrill rides in one spot. And it's just amazing to me how this is a $1 billion company. This is a $1 billion industry, and they compete with that of Disney World, but two very different products, two very different focuses. In fact, they're going for different things. And I think here recently, Six Flags and Cedar Point, they're in the middle of a merger. You can look it up. But one of the things they came out and said was they want to merge because they want to compete with Disney World. They want to compete with Disney. They want to provide a more experience-oriented ride. They're not going to change the style of ride, meaning it's still going to be these thrill rides, these exciting roller coasters, but it's going to be done the way that Disney World does it, where they immerse you with an experience, which is what we teach, which is what we believe in. And when you do that, you lose these objections. These same people who complain about your garbage disposal price, the same people who don't agree with how much it costs to pull and reset a toilet, the same people who diminish your worth down to a few minutes in their mind are the same people who are not complaining about the price at Disney World. They're not complaining about the price, and they should be. If we were going to complain, this is where we would complain. They're the most expensive. But people pay it. In fact, people get in line to pay it. Okay, now I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to objections, you have not built consumer confidence. That's why you're getting that objection. They don't trust your solution. They don't trust the person providing the solution. Something's up. So there's a little framework I use called A.R.T, agree, request, transition. The key here is that we have to understand that when people object, their values are being rubbed. They're not thrilled about what's going on. They're not excited about what's going on. And so we have to kind of, one of the big mistakes I see with objections is people combat them. They come at them. instead of trying to understand them. So rule number one is we have to understand, we have to do a better job of seeking to understand what the objection really is even about. What's the real objection? So that's number one. We have to seek to understand what the objection's even about. What are they objecting to? Is it actually the financial dollar amount because they don't have it? Or is it the financial dollar amount because they think that you're overpriced and they can get it better somewhere else? Look, not everyone's being cheap. Okay, I'm willing to spend money on some things. I'm not willing to spend money on others. There's also certain amounts of money I won't spend on certain things because it's just quite honestly at this point out of hand. I'm not $1,000 steak guy. I know they're out there. They might even have the value. I don't know. But at some point I found that around $70-something, which is still quite a bit of money for a steak, I can be satisfied. I'm happy. Other people, good with $30 steaks. Okay, everybody's got a different opinion and value on what they place things, and it's your job to understand that from the customer. So when they say you're too expensive, they're not saying you're not worth it. They're just not seeing the value. People don't typically object to how much money they're spending. They typically object to what they're getting for the money they're spending. And this is really important for you to understand when it comes to price objections. But there's also people who are passive aggressive. There's people who are non-confrontational. In fact, most people are non-confrontational. So they're going to say things like, well, I need to talk to my spouse, or and that type of a thing, or I need to run this by someone else. That someone else may not even be something that they're going to talk to them about. They may have already decided they're not going to use you. They don't like your price. They don't like you. They don't like something, and they just put that on someone else, but it never really existed. So I want to understand more information about that. Like, what is the objection? What's going on here? What are they really objecting to? And the second thing that I really want to understand when I'm seeking to understand more is why. Why are they objecting? I know what they're objecting, but why are they objecting to it? They're objecting to the price, but why? Oftentimes in diagnosing, we say, we know what's broke, but why are we out there? Well, if it's the fill valve, we know the reason why we're out there, or what's broke is the fill valve, but the reason why might be water condition, water pressure, might be the age. But there's another why behind this. Why am I out here with this customer? Sometimes I've talked to customers and I said, hey, how long has the faucet dripped? And they said, for about a month now. Well, what's different? Why all of a sudden am I out here today and I wasn't out here a month ago? Oh, well, you got family coming into town. So we find out that the reason why actually has nothing to do with the plumbing. The reason why may have nothing to do with the price, even though it's a price objection. And this is true for any objection. This is true for any objection. I want to go back and touch on this idea of passive aggressiveness with people because they'll do this one a lot. They'll play with the two. The what is price, the why is spouse, but in reality it's them. They don't agree with the price. They don't agree with what you're saying. They don't like what you're saying. And so when you request more information, okay, well, what would do you mind me asking kind of what your husband was thinking it would cost, or what your wife thought it was going to cost, or what you guys, and all of a sudden they'll, in an effort to get their objection addressed, they'll use their spouse as the talking point. So they'll say, well, my husband typically does things himself, so he's going to wonder why it's so expensive. But really it's them. It's them. And I found this out. I remember one time I was on a call in Southern California with a company called Cisneros and a gentleman by the name of Roy. We were on a call there in Hesperia. We went on this call and they needed a PRV. They had a PRV that had failed, and they had a water hammer in the wall and a hose bib that had it could have been rebuilt but needed to be replaced. And so that was, I think, our third option was a new PRV. But they wanted to know why it was so expensive. And the reason why they were questioning the pricing wasn't because the what was the pricing, but the why wasn't questioning the pricing of the PRV. They just expected us to be able to fix the hose bed for a lot cheaper than, whatever the price was, $800-900. But this ended up being more than just a hose bib. So there was a disconnect. I can remember the same thing happening with the toilet rebuild where it was going to be $650. And she was like, that sounds expensive. And it is for a toilet rebuild, but that was not what we were offering her. The toilet was like 40 years old. We weren't going to rebuild it. It was cracked, leaking. It needed to be replaced. The $650 was for a brand new toilet. Now, she said, that's expensive. I want to wait and think about it. And I said, do you mind me asking what you're expecting? And she said, well, just a couple $100 for a rebuild. Now, she's an older lady. There was a disconnect and miscommunication. And so I was like, oh, no. To rebuild it, you're right. It really wouldn't have been more than a couple $100. Unfortunately, your toilet's super old, blah, 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 blah. We need to replace it. So then she was like, oh, $650 to replace it. And I said, yeah. She was on board. Just a miscommunication, but seeking to understand the objection helped me understand not only what the objection was, but why it was being objected to begin with. And in this particular case, it was just a misunderstanding. We overcame it, no big deal. And in the other case that we were talking about, it's the same kind of a thing. If the customer doesn't understand the value of what they're getting, then they won't want to make the decision. In this case, a PRV and a new hose bib. all of that for 900, for I think it was like 838 or something like that for a brand new hose bib. Go on the wall, cut out the old one, put in a new one, and then go down and she had a box in the ground. We're going to have to dig it up a little bit, not too much, and put in a PRV. And actually we ended up getting the job. But the whole thing that was crazy was the whole time she kept saying she had to talk to her grandma. And so I asked her what questions her grandma might have. She said, well, she's going to want to know why it's so expensive. And then I explained, it's two different things. It's not just a hose pick. In fact, she was getting a discount when you combine the two. If she had done them separately, it would have been more expensive. So then I explained that to her, and then she had some more questions, and then I had some questions, and we went back and forth. And eventually she was like, all right, let's just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, where's grandma? We're not going to get a hold of grandma no more? Like, grandma doesn't exist? Grandma's good with it? Am I on video? Like, is she watching us? Like, is this an interrogation room? Even me and the tech both looked at each other. I was like, I guess grandma's good now. No, we didn't say nothing. What if I was like, no, not until we get grandma on the phone? No, we just got a signature and did the work. It's always interesting to me too about how objections, it's like, man, it's so crazy. Follow-ups are the same way. They blow my mind. It's like, objections were just one question away before all of a sudden we're all good with it now. We're going to do it and we're happy. I've had that happen so many times. But also, I've learned some things through objections. Like one lady was really concerned about sodium intake on a water softener. And quite honestly, at this particular time in my career, I wasn't so sure. I didn't know how much sodium a person would take. I just knew that the exchange between the hard water and the sediment was going to be done with sodium. And so that iodine exchange was taking place, and she was concerned about the sodium intake. She was an older lady, and I looked it up online. I went out and looked it up online after I asked her some more questions and requested more, seek to understand, right? What and why. And once I had a little bit better of understanding, I said, oh, that makes sense. And I got a little bit nervous, and I was like, dang, maybe I shouldn't be selling these, to old people. And so I went and looked it up, and no joke, and you can look this up. This was around, I'm going to date myself here. This was around 2015-ish, somewhere in that area, 16, 14, 17, we'll say 14 to 17. And I looked it up in the truck, and there was a article that had just come out. It just come out, I want to say within a couple months. Now you might look this up and find out I'm a year off or something, but the article came out. It was Mayo Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, the one that everyone goes, oh yeah, the medical geniuses of the world. These are the experts. The Mayo Clinic said they did an article. They were curious, I guess, themselves, and they did an article on how much sodium a human could take and how much sodium a human takes with softened water. And it was, you would have to drink the entire daily consumption of your daily water need 5 days in a row out of your faucet from softened water to equal one soda. And I was like, well, this is a non-issue. So I went inside, and she literally had a McDonald's bag in her trash can. And I'm not aggressive. I'm not a pressure person in the home. I'm very actually nonchalant. I had a little bit of a relationship with her. I say, hey, I can't remember her name. I said, hey, so I actually did some research on the sodium. Did you know? And I told her, and I said, that McDonald's bag is actually going to have more sodium in it than a whole week's worth of water. And sure enough, that was a real objection for her. That was not a fake objection. Had it been a fake objection, she still would have said no. I would have caught on that she was just trying to tell me no. I would have left it alone. I would have moved on. I'd have let her go. I wouldn't have brought it up no more. But that was a real objection for her. So what happened? She bought the softener. So crazy. It doesn't make me a good salesman. Doesn't make anyone a good salesman. Just genuinely seeking to understand and navigating that conversation. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's not easy. But our job is to go in there and educate and inform. And yeah, we should expect our customers to be cautious. We should expect our customers not to just go along with it. Okay, there's trust that has to be earned and a relationship that has to be built. And expertise and information that has to be shared that lets them know that you do know more than them. And not in a condescending, I'm right, you're wrong kind of way. Okay, it has to be done with empathy. It has to be done with consideration. It has to be done in a way to where customers can appreciate it. They don't feel told. Okay, this is so important when it comes to objections. These are the reasons why objections come up. They push back. They say no. They don't know how to say no. But if you're having a conversation throughout the process and you're asking questions, a lot of times whatever objection was going to come up prematurely gets exposed and you can deal with it before it's a big deal. I always tell people, look, if you bring it up, it sounds like information and education. If they bring it up and then you try to answer that, it sounds like a sales pitch. Meaning if I tell someone why Lowe's and Home Depot's prices are what they are and then whatever, and I go through that whole spiel like I think I did earlier here, you on the other hand, and what I would say earlier here, you go back to other episodes where I talk about pricing and how I deal with objections and how I price things. I'll let people know, like, hey, look, just so you know, The faucet's failing. You got a couple different ways to go about this. One way you could always go about it is you can go buy your own faucet from Home Depot or Lowe's. They are a little bit different. They're obviously you'd buy it from them and then somebody else would install it. The manufacturer's warranty would be back with the manufacturer, not with Lowe's or us. If we install it, we're going to go to a supply shop. The main reason why we go to a supply shop is just because if you take, a part like a 400 Delta LF with a 400 Delta LF at the supply shop, and I'll let the customer know what those are. Those are model numbers and kitchen faucets. And then I'll say, they weigh different amounts. The one at supply shop is made with metal components. The one at Lowe's is made with plastic components. So it's just something a little bit to consider. Well, when I do that kind of stuff, I'm eliminating the need for them to go, why are you more expensive than Lowe's? Well, I just told you. And on top of that, I'm separating myself. I know things they don't know. I know that just buying the same product from a different store is it has value, has that knowledge, has that wisdom, has value. Okay, knowing that a tomato is, knowing that a tomato is a fruit is knowledge. Knowing not to put it in a fruit salad is wisdom. And it's the same kind of thing here. Everybody can get the knowledge online, but the wisdom of where to buy it and who to buy it from and who to have it installed. I think a lot of us know other plumbers that people could pay $653.14 for a new faucet from you, or $653.14 for a new faucet from this other guy. And if the other guy does it, they're not going to be as happy as if you do it. And it's the same product, just not the same service. See, this has a value to it. And we have to communicate that to the customer so they understand why we're more expensive. So they understand why we're offering different things. Whatever I'm diagnosing in the home, it's very important to me to relate everything back to the main reason why they called me out there. That way they don't feel like I'm pressuring them or trying to sell them things. And I'm checking with them. I'm pulse checking with them as I'm going through the call to make sure I'm not wearing them out, so to speak, exasperating them. And I want to make sure they're comfortable with what's happening. So that way when I get to option 3, they're willing to hear it. They understand why I'm saying it. It's not their first time hearing it also, by the way. And it's not a big shocker on my pricing. They've been price conditioned. This is how you really avoid objections. But if you do get them, if you do, seek to understand what the objection is and then figure out why you're getting it. Try to dive into that. And it all comes back from requesting more information about their problem, about their concern, about their objection, about their whatever. And sometimes there's another party involved. Sometimes there's a second party involved. See if you can help out by being available for a phone call or coming back by, or if they want to talk to you on the phone or call you back, or even right now. Whatever makes sense, however that conversation is flowing. Look, here's the bottom line. Don't fight your customer. Don't tell your customers no. Stop telling your customers they're wrong. Let them down gently. It's like a really, really, really hard breakup. Okay, you got to be gentle. When they're wrong, just like, okay, that makes sense. Let me ask you this. Where'd you learn about that? Because it's a little bit, and then I might let them tell me some more, and then I might educate, fill in the blanks for them and help them understand a little bit differently. But I'm never just going to come and say, well, that's wrong. Nope, can't do that. Why are you guys so expensive? Well, we're not expensive, and then you get all offensive. Yeah, you are. You are expensive. It's okay. We are expensive. We're outrageously expensive, and we should be. Stop hiding behind that like you're not, because you are, and it's okay. Disney World's not like cheapest amusement park in town. And I'm like, geez, that's expensive. And they're like, we are. And then they just look at you like, so do you want it? Because there's 20 people behind you that do. Okay, stop being embarrassed by your pricing. Stop acting like it's not high. It is high, and that's okay. Just go be worth it. Just go be worth it. Be worth it on the front end when you're explaining things. Be worth it on the back end when you're doing things. I love you. Remember, always, if you want more help with your company, if you want more help, you want to change your company right now, you want to fix all this stuff, reach out to us. info@theplumbingsalescoach.com. Have a conversation with someone here. We'll get you connected with all the different trainings that we have, and we'll fix your company. I mean, we'll kill it. But if you're about the wrong things, we can't help you. If you're about the right things and you just want to learn to make big money the right way while getting your life back, we are the only place on earth that's going to show you how to do that the right way. We love you. And as always, remember, serve your community in everything, not just plumbing. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Plumbing Sales Coach podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check us out on the web at theplumbingsalescoach.com.